how would you be able to tell what good is if you don't know what bad is? If there is no such thing as bad. That's kind of how we create the separation and we know what's good and what's bad. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Jay's Perspective. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about the fact that bad exists so that good is able to. So I kind of wanted to go in this video and connect it to my why all good things are hard to get video, right? So if you haven't seen that video, first of all, go watch it. Second of all, in that video I stated, if it was easy to get $1,000,000, right, then everybody would have $1,000,000. And if everybody had $1,000,000, it would no longer have value. And then a person with $1,000,000 would no longer be considered a rich person. Now that would become the standard for a poor person because everybody has $1,000,000, and then things like that, right? So the reason I want to connect it to that is, yeah, if everybody has $1,000,000, you're no longer considered rich. So if everybody was a good person, you would no longer be considered a good person because that will become the new standard. So the point and connection I want to make between those two things is, if there's a new standard being set, then that means that being good is not special, being rich is not special. Or in those cases, having $1,000,000 doesn't make you rich, or doing something like giving to charity, if everybody gives to charity, doesn't make you good because it's the standard, it's regular. So that's what I wanted to talk about, guys. Bad exists so that good is able to exist, right? So if nobody was bad, if nobody did bad things, if we had no idea what bad was, then there would be no good. How would you be able to tell what good is if you don't know what bad is? If there is no such thing as bad. That's kind of how we create the separation, and we know what's good and what's bad because we know that on this end of the spectrum, doing such and such is a bad thing to do, right? So imagine in our heads, committing murder is bad. That's a bad thing to do. Killing another person, killing whatever is bad. If nobody was to commit murders, right, and like everybody just letting everybody else live, then committing murder is not going to be considered a bad thing just because it's not considered a thing at all, right? So honestly, it wouldn't even be in our heads that murder is a thing. But once we see murder happen, we're like, oh, that's out of the ordinary, that's unusual, that's a bad thing to do. So bad things have to happen in order for us to value the good things, in order for us to know what the good things are. In some scenarios, some people I've heard, grow up being rich or whatever, right? Being rich, being spoiled, being this and that, whatever. You ever heard somebody tell another person that, you haven't been through anything, you haven't experienced this, you haven't experienced that, you have nothing to cry about, what are you upset about, blah, 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 right? Now, for a person that was raised being rich, like raised with money and all this other stuff and luxuries and everything, if that person then experiences the normal hardships of a normal person, they start to think, oh, their life is over, oh, they're going through all this crap and stuff like that. But then the person that experiences these things on a regular basis think, well, like, what are you talking about? You're rich, this and that. Well, that's because their norm, their standard is being rich. If your standard is being rich, if your standard is being spoiled, if your standard is having things given to you, not working for anything, you used to being told yes all the time. So when somebody tells you no, you freak out. If that's your standard, then yeah, you're gonna freak out when you told no. You're gonna panic when you don't have the money. You're gonna panic when this happened, when that happened, because you're used to this standard. So the standards that we're used to is kind of what helps determine what is a good thing to us, what's a bad thing to us. So a person that was born rich into money and stuff like that, them getting $1,000,000 for an allowance or whatever from their parents, or a new car or whatever, is not even gonna be really a big deal to them because that's their standard. That's the way they're used to living. So it's not going to be like, oh, this is a good thing, right? Now, for a normal person without that standard, that's a great thing. It's a fantastic thing. But that standard of being rich since you were born and things like that, it creates that little difference to where, it doesn't matter that that rich person is getting something else. They're used to getting that. So, yeah, the standard is really what creates good and bad, right? There has to be a standard of what we are used to. If we're used to a standard of this is the baseline of kind of what's neutral, right? Like this isn't good, this isn't bad, this is just like a normal daily living thing. When somebody does something that goes beyond that, then it's considered a good thing. When somebody does something that's below that standard, it's considered a bad thing, right? And if there was no bad things being done at any point in time, then we would never know what a good thing is because we would have nothing to base it off of. We would have nothing to compare it to. We need something to compare the good things to in order for us to know what a good thing is. We need something for us to compare the bad things to in order for us to know what a good thing is. We need to have these standards because without one, the other cannot exist. You cannot have one opposite end of the spectrum and not have the other exist. You have to have both things that kind of balance everything out and things of that nature. So, yeah, that's mainly my main point and thought about, why bad exists. Bad exists so good is able to. So, I mean, people think God is good, the devil's evil, stuff like that. But if there was no devil, if there was no, any bad thing like that, what would make people think God is good? There has to be an opposite end of the spectrum. If you really sit there and think about it, when you think about all bad things or all good things, there's always going to be an opposite end of it. What's the opposite good thing? The great thing, if a great thing is saving somebody's life, a horrible thing would be to take somebody's life away. There's always going to be something on the opposite end of the spectrum. So that's really it for this video, guys. Just remember, this is just Jay's perspective. Everything that I say is just what I think, is just what I do. You don't got to follow it. You do you. Like, comment, subscribe. Catch y'all in the next one.